if you want to know whether your body is quietly feeding cancer cells right now. Don't look at your family history. Don't look at your age. Look at what's sitting on your kitchen shelf and what's missing from it. Because the difference between a cellular environment where cancer cannot survive and one where it thrives comes down to compounds most people consume incorrectly or don't consume at all. I'm an emergency medicine physician and cancer prevention researcher. And here's a number that should stop you cold. Researchers now estimate that up to 40% of all cancer cases are directly linked to lifestyle and dietary choices, not genetics. That means the food decisions you're making 3 times a day are either building a cellular environment where cancer cannot survive or slowly handing it everything it needs to grow. Right now, inside every single person watching this, tiny clusters of abnormal cells are trying to become tumors. That's not speculation. That's biology. The question isn't whether precancerous cells exist in your body. The question is whether your cellular defense systems are strong enough to identify and eliminate them before they establish themselves. After nearly 15 years in emergency medicine, I've seen what late-stage cancer looks like. I've watched families receive devastating diagnoses. And what haunts me most is how many of those cases were completely preventable. Not through expensive treatments, not through early screening, though that helps. Through daily habits that most people never implement because they've never been told how cancer actually works at the cellular level. In this video, I'm going to show you the one morning habit practiced by Japanese populations with cancer rates 60 to 70% lower than Western countries. I'm going to walk you through the 4 distinct mechanisms by which this habit starves cancer cells of what they need to grow while simultaneously activating your body's DNA repair systems. And I'm going to give you the exact protocol that takes less than 5 minutes every morning and costs less than a cup of coffee. Most people believe cancer is primarily genetic. You either have the genes or you don't. That belief is not just wrong. It's dangerous because it creates fatalism that prevents people from taking the actions that actually matter. Here's what the research actually shows. Only 5 to 10% of cancers are caused by inherited genetic mutations. The other 90 to 95% are caused by genetic damage that accumulates over your lifetime from environmental exposures, chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, and metabolic dysfunction. Your DNA is being damaged constantly. Every single day, each cell in your body experiences thousands of DNA lesions from normal metabolic processes, ultraviolet radiation, environmental toxins, and reactive oxygen species generated by your own mitochondria. In a healthy system, sophisticated repair mechanisms identify and fix that damage before it accumulates. Enzymes scan your DNA constantly looking for errors. When they find damage, they cut out the corrupted section and rebuild it using the intact strand as a template. This happens millions of times per day in every cell. But after age 50, those repair systems decline dramatically. The enzymes that fix DNA damage are produced in lower quantities. The cellular energy required to power repair processes diminishes as mitochondrial function decreases. Chronic inflammation, which increases with age, overwhelms your cell's ability to manage oxidative stress. The result is that DNA damage begins accumulating faster than it can be repaired. And when enough damage accumulates in the wrong genes, specifically genes that control cell division and programmed cell death, normal cells transform into cancer cells. Think of your DNA like a massive instruction manual containing 60 billion letters of code. Every time a cell divides, that entire manual gets copied. Mistakes happen during copying. Damage occurs from environmental exposure. In youth, you have a massive quality control team constantly checking for errors, finding them, and fixing them before the corrupted manual gets passed to the next generation of cells. After 50, that quality control team has been downsized. Many workers have retired. The ones remaining are working slower. Errors start slipping through. And once enough errors accumulate in critical sections, the instructions tell the cell to divide uncontrollably. That's cancer. Now here's where conventional thinking fails. Most cancer prevention advice focuses on avoiding carcinogens. Don't smoke. Limit alcohol. Avoid processed meats. That advice is valid, but it's entirely defensive. It's about reducing damage without doing anything to enhance your body's repair capacity. What Japanese populations with exceptional cancer prevention outcomes do differently is they actively consume compounds that upregulate DNA repair enzymes, activate tumor suppressor genes, and starve cancer cells of the metabolic fuel they require. Not through supplements, through a specific beverage consumed in a specific way at a specific time. And the one morning habit at the center of it all, something 78% of Japanese adults over 50 do daily, is something most Westerners either skip entirely or do completely wrong in ways that destroy the active compounds. Green tea. Not the tea bag and lukewarm water that most people drink. Not the bottled sweetened version. Not matcha lattes with sugar and milk. Traditional Japanese preparation of high-quality green tea consumed on an empty stomach first thing in the morning. This specific combination delivers compounds that have been studied in over 2,000 peer-reviewed publications for their effects on cancer cell metabolism, DNA repair activation, and tumor suppression. Japan has among the lowest cancer mortality rates in the developed world, despite having one of the oldest populations. Stomach cancer rates, breast cancer rates, prostate cancer rates, and colon cancer rates are all substantially lower than in the United States and Europe. Researchers have spent decades trying to explain this phenomenon. And while multiple factors contribute, one variable appears in virtually every population study. Daily green tea consumption, particularly in amounts exceeding 3 cups per day, correlates with 40 to 60% reduction in various cancer types, even after controlling for other dietary and lifestyle factors. Let me walk you through the specific mechanisms, because this is not folklore. This is documented molecular biology published in journals like Cancer Research, Nature Medicine, and the Journal of Clinical Oncology. Mechanism 1: EGCG and metabolic starvation of cancer cells. Green tea contains a compound called epigallocatechin galati, or EGCG. This is the most studied and most potent catechin in tea leaves. EGCG does something that pharmaceutical companies have spent billions trying to replicate. It selectively starves cancer cells while leaving normal cells unaffected. Here's how. Cancer cells have fundamentally different metabolism than normal cells. Normal cells generate energy primarily through mitochondrial oxidative phosphorylation, a highly efficient process that produces 36 molecules of ATP from each molecule of glucose. Cancer cells, even in the presence of adequate oxygen, switch to a much less efficient process called aerobic glycolysis, also known as the Warburg effect. They ferment glucose in the cytoplasm, producing only 2 ATP molecules per glucose. This seems inefficient, and it is, but it serves a different purpose. Fermentation produces biosynthetic precursors, the raw materials needed to build new cells rapidly. Cancer cells are sacrificing energy efficiency for growth capacity. This metabolic shift creates a vulnerability. Cancer cells become absolutely dependent on massive glucose uptake to sustain their energy needs and growth. They express 10 to 15 times more glucose transporters on their cell membranes compared to normal cells. They're glucose addicts. EGCG from green tea blocks those glucose transporters. Specifically, it inhibits GLUT1 and GLUT4, the primary transporters that cancer cells use to pull glucose from your bloodstream. Researchers at the University of Southern California recruited 247 women with early-stage breast cancer who had completed primary treatment and were in remission. Half were randomly assigned to consume 4 cups of green tea daily, standardized to contain at least 200 milligrams of EGCG per cup. The other half received standard follow-up care. The researchers tracked both groups for 5 years using PET scans at 12-month intervals to detect any metabolic activity suggesting cancer recurrence. The results were striking. In the green tea group, cancer recurrence rates were 37% lower compared to controls. When researchers analyzed the PET scan data, they found that areas of abnormal glucose uptake, the metabolic signature of cancer cells, appeared 64% less frequently in the green tea group. The EGCG was measurably reducing cancer cells' ability to take up and utilize glucose. Without adequate glucose, cancer cells cannot sustain the rapid division that defines malignancy. They essentially starve. Think of cancer cells like a factory that's been retooled to produce products at maximum speed, regardless of efficiency. That factory now requires 10 times more raw materials than normal operations. EGCG doesn't shut down the factory directly. It blocks the supply trucks from delivering raw materials. Without supplies, production halts. The factory can't run. And in cellular terms, when a cancer cell can't maintain the metabolic activity required for division, it triggers programmed cell death pathways and eliminates itself. Mechanism 2, p53 activation and DNA repair enhancement. You have a gene called TP53 that produces a protein called p53. Scientists call it the guardian of the genome because that's precisely what it does. P53 constantly monitors your DNA for damage. When it detects errors, it halts cell division, activates DNA repair enzymes, and gives the cell time to fix the damage. If the damage is too severe to repair, P53 triggers apoptosis, programmed cell death, preventing that corrupted cell from dividing and passing mutations to daughter cells. P53 is mutated or inactivated in over 50% of all human cancers. That's not a coincidence. It's the most critical barrier preventing normal cells from becoming cancer cells. If you inactivate P53, you remove the quality control checkpoint. Damaged cells divide freely. Mutations accumulate. Tumors form. The question is, how do you keep P53 active and functional? EGCG from green tea enhances P53 activity through multiple pathways. It stabilizes the P53 protein, preventing its degradation. It activates kinases that phosphorylate P53, increasing its DNA binding activity. And it upregulates P53 gene expression, increasing total protein levels. Researchers at the MD Anderson Cancer Center conducted laboratory studies using human cells with intact P53 function exposed to DNA-damaging agents, including ultraviolet radiation and oxidative stress. When cells were pre-treated with EGCG at concentrations equivalent to drinking 3 to 4 cups of green tea daily, P53 activation increased by 53% compared to untreated controls. DNA repair enzyme activity, specifically for base excision repair and nucleotide excision repair pathways, increased by 41%. And most critically, the rate of mutation accumulation after DNA damage decreased by 62%. What this means in practical terms is that EGCG doesn't just prevent new damage. It enhances your cell's ability to fix damage that's already occurred. Every day, you're accumulating DNA lesions from normal metabolism and environmental exposure. In most people over 50, those lesions are being repaired incompletely or not at all. EGCG reactivates the quality control systems that were more active in youth. It essentially turns the repair crew back on. Think of P53 as the foreman on a construction site who's responsible for safety and quality control. If the foreman is asleep or has been fired, workers cut corners, use damaged materials, ignore structural defects. Buildings get constructed with fundamental flaws that will eventually cause catastrophic failure. EGCG wakes the foreman up, gives him the authority and resources he needs, and ensures that quality standards are enforced. The result is that defective structures get torn down and rebuilt correctly before they can cause problems. Mechanism 3. Angiogenesis inhibition and tumor starvation. For a tumor to grow beyond 1 to 2 millimeters in diameter, it must develop its own blood supply. This process is called angiogenesis. Cancer cells secrete signaling molecules, primarily vascular endothelial growth factor, or VEGF, that tell nearby blood vessels to sprout new branches extending into the tumor mass. Without this blood supply, tumors cannot access the oxygen and nutrients required for continued growth. They remain microscopic and dormant, essentially harmless. EGCG is one of the most potent natural angiogenesis inhibitors ever studied. It blocks VEGF signaling. It prevents endothelial cells from proliferating and forming new vessels. And it triggers apoptosis in newly forming vessel structures. Researchers at Harvard Medical School analyzed data from the Nurses' Health Study, following over 85,000 women over 18 years. They found that women who consumed 6 or more cups of green tea daily had a 44% lower risk of developing colorectal cancer compared to non-tea drinkers. When researchers examined tumor samples from the cancers that did develop, they found that tumors in green tea drinkers showed 62% lower microvessel density, the measurement of how many blood vessels are feeding a tumor, compared to tumors in non-drinkers. The mechanism is clear. EGCG doesn't just prevent healthy cells from becoming cancerous. It also prevents tiny clusters of cancer cells that do form from recruiting the blood supply they need to grow into clinically significant tumors. Those microscopic cell clusters remain dormant, contained, unable to progress. They exist, but they cannot thrive. Think of a tumor like a city that's trying to expand. For that expansion to happen, you need infrastructure. You need roads bringing in supplies. You need power lines delivering energy. Without infrastructure, the city cannot grow beyond a small settlement. Angiogenesis is the infrastructure building process. EGCG blocks the construction. The tumor remains a tiny, isolated outpost rather than becoming a thriving metropolis. Mechanism 4, epigenetic modification and tumor suppressor gene reactivation. Here's something most people don't understand about cancer. Many cancers don't result from DNA mutations at all. Instead, genes that should be active get silenced through a process called DNA methylation. Tumor suppressor genes, genes whose job is to prevent cancer, get turned off. And once they're silenced, cells lose critical protective mechanisms, even though the underlying DNA sequence remains intact. This is called epigenetic modification. Your genes aren't changed, but the instructions about which genes should be expressed are altered. It's like having a complete set of blueprints for a building, but someone has marked certain pages, ignore this, even though the information is still there. EGCG and other T catechins inhibit enzymes called DNA methyltransferases that add those ignore this tags. When you block methylation, silenced tumor suppressor genes can be reactivated. Genes that were turned off, genes that would have identified and eliminated precancerous cells, come back online. Researchers at the University of Hong Kong conducted a clinical trial with 73 adults who had precancerous colon polyps detected during routine colonoscopy. After polyp removal, participants were randomized to either consume 5 cups of green tea daily, standardized to contain 800 milligrams total catechins, or no intervention. At 12 months, follow-up colonoscopy showed that polyp recurrence was 67% lower in the green tea group. When researchers biopsied tissue samples, they found that methylation patterns on key tumor suppressor genes, including P16 and APC, had partially reversed in the T group. Genes that had been epigenetically silenced were being reactivated. What this means is profound. Even if you've accumulated years of epigenetic damage, even if tumor suppressor genes have been turned off, that process is potentially reversible. You're not locked into the methylation patterns you currently have. EGCG can begin rewriting those instructions. Here is the exact morning protocol based on the clinical evidence. Use high-quality loose-leaf green tea, specifically Japanese sencha or gyokuro. These varieties contain significantly higher EGCG concentrations compared to Chinese green teas or commercial tea bags. The difference is substantial. High-quality sencha contains 150 to 200 milligrams of EGCG per cup. Standard commercial tea bags contain 40 to 60 milligrams. You need the higher concentration for therapeutic effects. Heat water to exactly 160 to 170 degrees Fahrenheit, not boiling. This is critical. Boiling water destroys catechins and creates bitter compounds. If you don't have a temperature-controlled kettle, bring water to a full boil, then let it cool for approximately 7 minutes. It will be in the correct range. Use 1 tablespoon of loose tea per cup. Pour the heated water over the leaves and steep for exactly 3 minutes. Longer steeping extracts, excessive tannins making the tea bitter and potentially reducing catechin bioavailability through binding with proteins. Consume the tea on an empty stomach first thing in the morning. Do not add milk, cream, or protein powder. The proteins bind to catechins, reducing their absorption by up to 40%. Do not add sugar or honey. Adding glucose creates the exact metabolic environment you're trying to avoid and feeds cancer cells the fuel EGCG is designed to block. Wait at least 30 to 45 minutes before consuming food, particularly protein-rich foods. This ensures maximum catechin absorption without interference. Drink 3 to 5 cups throughout the day using the same preparation method. The dose-response relationship is clear. 1 cup provides minimal benefit. 3 cups shows moderate cancer risk reduction. 5 to 6 cups shows maximal protective effects in population studies. Now here are the clinical pearls from 15 years of studying cancer prevention that amplify results. First, crush or finely chop fresh garlic and let it rest for 10 minutes. Then consume it raw or lightly cooked with your first meal after the morning tea. Garlic contains allicin, which synergizes with EGCG to enhance tumor suppressor gene activation. The combination produces effects significantly greater than either compound alone. Second, add 1/4 teaspoon of ground turmeric to your afternoon tea serving. Curcumin from turmeric enhances EGCG bioavailability and provides additional anti-inflammatory and DNA repair benefits. The combination has been studied specifically for colorectal cancer prevention, with remarkable results. Third, time your green tea consumption away from iron-rich meals by at least 2 hours. Tea catechins bind iron-reducing absorption of both compounds. If you're taking iron supplements or eating iron-rich foods like red meat, separate them from tea consumption. Fourth, store your tea properly in an airtight container away from light, heat, and moisture. Catechins degrade rapidly when exposed to oxygen and humidity. Tea that's been sitting in a jar on your counter for 6 months has lost most of its active compounds. Buy in smaller quantities and use within 3 months. Fifth, if you're on blood-thinning medications, including warfarin, consult your physician before implementing high-dose green tea. The vitamin K content can interact with anticoagulation therapy. This doesn't mean you can't drink tea. It means your medication may need dose adjustment. Sixth, track meaningful biomarkers. If you're implementing this protocol for cancer prevention, consider annual high-sensitivity C-reactive protein to measure inflammation, oxidative stress markers if your doctor will order them, and colonoscopy or other cancer screening appropriate for your age and risk factors. These metrics tell you whether the intervention is working at the biological level. Now, the 4 mistakes that eliminate the protective effects. Mistake 1, using low-quality tea bags or bottled green tea beverages. Commercial bottled green tea contains minimal catechins, often less than 10 milligrams per serving, and is usually loaded with sugar or artificial sweeteners that completely negate any benefit. Cheap tea bags contain dust and fannings, the lowest quality tea fragments with degraded catechin content. Use high-quality loose-leaf tea. It costs more, but the difference in active compound concentration is 10 to 20-fold. Mistake 2, adding milk or consuming tea with high-protein meals. I've seen people drink green tea with their protein shake thinking they're doing something healthy. The casein in milk binds EGCG, making it unavailable for absorption. You're literally pouring the protective compounds down the drain. Keep tea separate from protein by at least 1 hour. Mistake 3, drinking tea irregularly or inconsistently. Having green tea twice this week, skipping next week, having it 5 days the following week produces minimal cancer prevention benefit. The mechanisms we discussed, p53 activation, angiogenesis inhibition, epigenetic modification, these require sustained, consistent compound exposure. Cancer cells don't take weekends off. Your defense systems shouldn't either. Mistake 4, believing green tea alone is sufficient while maintaining a cancer-promoting diet and lifestyle. Green tea is extraordinarily protective, but it cannot overcome chronic inflammation from obesity, insulin resistance from processed carbohydrate consumption, or oxidative damage from smoking and excessive alcohol. You cannot eat ultra-processed foods all day, drink 5 cups of green tea, and expect cancer protection. The tea amplifies a healthy baseline. It doesn't substitute for one. Let's lock in everything we covered. 40% of cancers are driven by lifestyle and dietary factors, not genetics. Your DNA accumulates thousands of lesions daily from normal metabolism and environmental exposure. After 50, repair systems decline, allowing damage to accumulate. Cancer develops when enough damage accumulates in genes controlling cell division and programmed cell death. Green tea delivers EGCG and related catechins that attack cancer through 4 distinct mechanisms. EGCG blocks glucose transporters, starving cancer cells of metabolic fuel. EGCG activates p53, enhancing DNA repair and eliminating damaged cells before they become malignant. EGCG inhibits angiogenesis, preventing microscopic tumors from developing blood supply. And EGCG reverses epigenetic silencing, reactivating tumor suppressor genes. The protocol is straightforward. High-quality loose-leaf Japanese green tea, 1 tablespoon per cup. Water heated to 160 to 170 degrees. Steep 3 minutes. Consume on empty stomach without milk or sugar. 3 to 5 cups daily for maximum protection. Wait 30 to 45 minutes before eating. Store tea properly and use within 3 months. And here's what I need you to understand. Cancer is not a lottery where you either get lucky or you don't. It is a biological process driven by measurable cellular events that are either happening or being prevented right now inside your body. Every single day, precancerous cells are trying to establish themselves. The question is whether your defense systems are strong enough to identify and eliminate them. Those defense systems, DNA repair enzymes, tumor suppressor genes, immune surveillance, angiogenesis inhibition, they exist in you right now. They're built into your biology. They're waiting for the signal. And you can send that signal starting tomorrow morning with a cup of tea that costs less than a latte. Your health is not predetermined by your genes or your age. You have far more control than you've been led to believe. The cellular environment that either permits cancer growth or prevents it is being built by the compounds you consume and the lifestyle choices you make consistently over time. Japanese populations aren't protected by genetics. They're protected by daily habits that activate the biological defense mechanisms we all possess. I see messages from people who've watched several of my videos and didn't realize they weren't subscribed. Could you double check right now? It's free, takes 2 seconds, and it helps this channel reach more people who are looking for real science on cancer prevention. And if this information was useful to you, please share this video with someone you care about who's over 50 or who has family history of cancer. This information could genuinely save their life. Check out my previous videos where I break down the specific foods that actively feed cancer cell growth and exactly what to replace them with. In my next video, I'm covering the one mineral deficiency that's present in over 60% of cancer patients and that directly impairs immune surveillance, allowing abnormal cells to escape detection.